back to another episode of AIBiz. I'm your host Avik, and today we are diving deep into a topic that so many corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers wrestle with daily. It's digital transformation. Yeah. But here's the twist, dear listeners. We are not talking about the technology, we are exploring why technology alone is not enough and what truly drives transformation in organizations. So, joining me is, please welcome Simon Copsey. So, welcome to the show, Simon.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, as you all know, like every day, I introduce you with one lovely guest to all of you. So, let me introduce you with Simon. So, Simon is a delivery and transformation consultant who works closely with the senior leaders to help them untangle the complex obstacles in weeks, not the years. And so, teams can be happier, more effective, and deliver better software to the customer faster. That's amazing, right? So his background spans from being a full stack software developer and tech lead to becoming a trusted advisor to CIOs, CTOs, and the senior managers. And he combines modern management theory, so the scientific method and the practical experience to diagnose and resolve the deeper issues that hinder organizational change. So, this conversation is going to be packed with wisdom for anyone navigating change, whether you are a corporate team or startup founder or a leader in the middle of a messy transformation. So, why to wait? Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks. Thanks, Avik. Wow, that's a lovely introduction. I'll try to live up to it.
Sure, definitely. You are actually. So, uh, so I'll definitely start with like I was mentioning, like many organizations think digital transformation is simply about adopting the latest technology. Uh, so on this, from your experience, what do you say? Like, why is technology necessary but not sufficient for the true transformation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think before I jump in, let me say that anything that sounds good that I say comes from other people, such as Goldratt or Akov or Deming. Anything that I say that doesn't sound right comes from me. So all the bad ideas are mine. Um, so Goldratt particularly was kind of talking about why technology is necessary but not sufficient, and I think we can walk through it maybe systematically, step by step. So I guess the goal of the digital transformation is to help an organization get closer to its own goal, which may be, for example, increase profits now in the future.
Mm.
And if that is the case, and if we imagine like an organization to be like a pipe where we're trying to um, deliver more of the right things faster, and every time we deliver more of the right things faster, we get fresh money coming to the organization, then like any pipe, there's a bottleneck. There's always one bottleneck. Statistically speaking, there's always one narrowest point, one part of the organization that goes slower than the rest. And if that is the case, firstly, we need to be sure that when we're focusing digital transformation, we need to focus on the right thing. If we focus anywhere but the bottleneck, anywhere but the part of the organization that's going the slowest, that's stopping us delivering more of the right stuff faster, then that's not going to be helpful. We need to focus efforts there. And so, for example, if we imagine like a very simple organization, right now, it's oversimplified, where we have to build software, and we build software for customers and ship it. And once we ship it, we get money. If the constraints in the organization, the bottleneck, the rate limiting step in the organization is the software development piece. It doesn't matter how many salesmen we hire or saleswomen we hire. All that will do is bring in more customers that we can't serve because our delivery team is the bottleneck through no fault of their own, and we need to help them before we can help the organization. So, long-winded way of saying the first thing is we need to make sure that if our goal is to increase profits now in the future, and that transformation is a way of getting that, we need to focus all efforts on where the bottleneck is in our organization. And there's always one slowest moving part through no fault of that part. It's just how our organization is designed. So, firstly, putting technology anywhere that isn't the bottleneck won't help. The second thing is, but before I get there, actually, I've said a lot. Avik, does that make sense so far? I want to extend that, but I've said a lot. What's coming up for you?
Exactly. I totally agree on this. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good. And then if that feels right, if that feels right, then we need to first focus on the bottleneck and focus anywhere else is unhelpful. Then we need to make sure that we apply the right kind of help. So often, if we, it's very easy to jump to technology, and I've done that a lot. I'm an ex-developer, as you said, so I love solutions. But
Mm.
there are different kinds of solutions, and before we pick the right one, we need to understand the problem. Often, for example, we might see that technology is unnecessary. And what I mean by that is part of the reason that often we see developers struggling is because as managers, we may believe that keeping everyone busy all the time means we'll deliver more in any given period. It's efficiency syndrome. Keeping our staff fully utilized means that more gets shipped. But we know from things like Kingsman's formula that theoretically that's not true. If we keep our staff utilized beyond 80%, queue lengths grow to infinity and we start to take longer to deliver any one thing, we get more traffic on the road, more traffic jams.
Mm.
Um, so there's certain management beliefs that start to get in the way, and sometimes just tackling those management beliefs, knowing that we just need to lower the work in process, so we have less traffic on the road, and any piece of work or car on the road can go from source to destination quicker, is enough. But even if that isn't enough, we may find that technology is helpful, but needs to be paired with a change in management belief. And as you know better than me, adopting Jira doesn't make you agile. Adopting this, doesn't change your belief. There's often transformation often begins with changing or debugging a belief in the management's mind. And the reason I say management is management set the rules. They set the way that things are done in organizations. And everyone needs to make assumptions in organizations to survive. In life, we need to make assumptions to survive. But over time, those assumptions can get further away from reality without us realizing. And I'm very, very guilty of this. It's just natural. And so often, when we bring in technology, even if we need technology, it's not always sufficient without also changing the belief in the minds of managers. But that was a lot. Avik, what comes up for you?
Mm. Wow. Amazing. Wow. Like, I think that that really resonates with a lot of listeners, like who might have seen this uh like shiny object transformations that uh don't solve the underlying problems, but it's like buying the best gym equipment but never actually building the habit of working out.
Yeah.
Like uh like most of us, we take the memberships, but maybe we visit once or twice in a whole year. So kind of that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, you put it really well, and oh, sorry, but yeah, I have shiny object syndrome. You can ask my wife, you can ask anyone I've worked with. I definitely have that. You put it really well. Did you and I think, sorry, as you said that, you helped me see that maybe just I should summarize. I think the 2 things that come up for me in particular is one is we need to focus on the bottleneck because, investing our time elsewhere is only a waste. And the second thing is that the bottleneck is a bottleneck, for a reason, and often we need to, um, uh
Mm.
it's the way of putting it. Um, we need to. There's often the bottleneck is often a bottleneck for a reason. It's because of a number of uh, obstacles that exist that are affecting that part of the organization. But rather than treating those obstacles themselves, we need to recognize that they're often symptoms that come from something deeper. And if we ask why, and see where those things come from, we may find at that point, even if we're aiming at the bottleneck, the solution isn't technical, but it's actually something deeper that's um, an assumption. So sorry, let me try and summarize again. I keep trying to summarize and I'm getting closer. So firstly, focus on the bottleneck. Secondly, don't focus on symptoms, focus on the underlying cause. Reason being is generally there's one cause to many symptoms, and that will help us help our bottlenecks faster. Um,
Yeah. Wow. And so definitely thank you so much for sharing this. And um like you are known for helping senior leaders like unwind the complex obstacles in weeks and not the years, like I was mentioning. So what is the first thing that you look for when diagnosing like what's holding an organization back?
I appreciate that, Vivek. Um, so I think the first thing we need to ask is what are we holding? What is the organization being held back from? I.e., what is the goal? And the reason I ask that is um, many leaders in an organization may have different goals. And if we don't agree on what we're trying to optimize for, we'll never be in agreement on the solution. So I guess the first thing is agree the goal. What one thing are we trying to optimize for? Does that make sense so far?
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then the second question is, if that is the case,
Mm.
what is the problem? What is the thing that's preventing progress? And generally, um, what I would expect to see at that stage is lots of things listed on the page, lots of problems. But problems, like natural phenomenon, the more we trace those problems back to what's causing them, we tend to come back to one or two or just a few things. And so it can look like the world's on fire, but the world's on fire just because maybe of one or two things. So the first thing is agree the goal. The second thing is agree the problem and where it's coming from. Because generally, if we agree where the problem is coming from, there's just a few things, albeit many symptoms, like when we go to the doctor. And if we try to, again, craft a solution without agreeing the goal or agreeing the problem, we're all going to be trying to solve different problems in our heads and we'll never come to agreement. And then the third thing is once we've agreed the goal, agreed the problem, we can then all agree a solution together because we're trying to tackle the same problem and optimize for the same outcome. So it's much easier and much more effective. And then once we've agreed the solution, we can move forward. But I guess that's the way of doing things. Otherwise, we try to boil the ocean. We try to pull everyone in different directions, whereas this allows for focus.
Mm. True. Exactly. And like, if I may ask, like, how do you get the leaders to see those kind of systemic issues, like when they are often buried under the day-to-day file? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, the ideal is
Mm.
to involve them, for them to be part of the investigation. Uh, that way, I think a friend of mine, Stuart Corrigan, said that if they're not part of the investigation, it's very hard for them to understand. Not because they're unintelligent, quite the opposite. It's just that it's like trying to describe the color orange to someone who hasn't seen orange before. If they're not part of the journey to understand and investigate, it's really hard for them to imagine things that they haven't seen for themselves. It's very unfair. So ideally, they'd be part of the journey. But a lot of the journey is similar to, I guess, what you do in UX design, where you talk to, as you said, systemic is the key word, right? There's, and the other word, I guess, is complex in that what we're trying to do is assemble the puzzle pieces of an organization. We're trying to talk to different people in and around the problem and piece together different views. And in doing so, we have the jigsaw puzzle of the problem coming together, and we can we can see what makes sense of it. Um, but generally, sorry, starting at the very beginning, what we would generally do is involve the leaders in talking to the staff in small groups to understand, hey, given this is the goal that we're trying to optimize for, what are all the things that get in the way of you achieving that goal? How is this organization making your life difficult unintentionally? And what we'll start to see is lots of things come up. And we can all then start to ask questions, say, oh, what do you think's causing that? Where do you think that's coming from? And as you said, systemically, right? We then work backwards from symptoms to cause and start to work out where all these symptoms are coming from. And it will generally converge. The more we ask, where do you think that's coming from? Why do you think that is? We generally see things converging on just a few underlying problems. And the management being a part of that helps them see how some of the rules they've set unintentionally have had these side effects. We can't predict the future. We can't make perfect rules, and rules won't stand up to time. So it's about understanding which rules are now getting in the way. And they may be incentives, they may be absence of a goal, or maybe a goal or conflicting goals. Those kind of things that just over time get in the way and make it hard for staff. But what comes up for you, Avik? I said like it.
Mm. Wow. And like, I mean, you have said that the happier staff deliver better softwares to the customers and faster, obviously. So, in practice, what does it take to create those happier teams? If you can share.
Oh yeah, sure. But that's a really good question. You're making me think. I like that. Um, So I guess happier staff, right? I guess we can resort to, I think Daniel Pink and Alfie Cohn have done a lot of work here about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. We see this in kids when kids are born. They're born motivated and born to learn, born curious. But somehow a lot of organizations unintentionally um, get in the way of that curiosity. And so the three pillars of intrinsic motivation, if I remember correctly, are purpose, mastery, and autonomy, right?
Mm.
Autonomy being the ability to choose what they do and how they do it. Mastery being the ability to develop the skills that matter to them. Um, and purpose, wanting to achieve something greater than themselves, like being part of an open source software collaboration. And so those three things need to exist in an organization for our staff to thrive. And often purpose is one that's missing. And when purpose is missing, people burn out, not because they're too busy, but quite the opposite. They're just missing their sense of purpose. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing and what it's leading to. So those three things we need to make sure exist for our staff. But a lot of time when we have a lot of work, um, when people are multitasking, bad multitasking do a lot. They don't have time to learn. That's one that's so easily missed. And if they don't have time to learn, they don't have the ability to grow in their career, and they leave and go elsewhere where they can. So those are the three things I think we need to safeguard. And the great thing about that is it's not a conflict. Having time to learn um, allows us to retain our staff, and retaining our staff means that we don't have the cost of having to rehire and retrain. Um, and we have this growing knowledge capital in our organization, so we make better progress. So there's a win-win situation here that if we keep our staff happy, we make more progress on our goals. Um, and there's one other thing that, yeah. But before I continue, what comes up for you? Is this starting to connect with your question?
Exactly, exactly. So like, if you can also share like the one common mistakes that leaders make when they're trying to motivate their teams that actually backfires.
Yeah, sure. I guess it's and I can only talk subjectively. I've only worked with a few people and made a certain set of mistakes myself, definitely. I guess motivation is often conflated with maybe extrinsic motivation, which is the idea of using bonuses or promising things if certain targets are met. And targets themselves, I guess, are used as ways of motivating staff. But these
Mm.
things don't tend to work. And Deming talked about this. So he talked about if you, for example, give someone a target and suggest that their job security depends on it, they'll do anything to achieve that target, even if it ruins the organization in the process.
Mm.
And they'll introduce gaming, they'll introduce anything. So it's not that measures are bad, it's that when you turn them into targets, they're bad, potentially. I think that connects with good hearts, or if I understand correctly. Targets can introduce unexpected behaviors. Um, and offering rewards, the other side of that, instead of punishments, rewards, that tends to reduce intrinsic motivation because people look beyond the task and start to focus on the reward and trying to get to that reward in any way they can. It's just natural human behavior. It's not that people are bad. It's just that's what studies have shown from a psychology perspective. So those extrinsic motivations are um,
Uh,
easy to offer, but the more complex the task, the more they'll backfire and the more they'll do damage in unexpected ways to the organization. So the flip needs to be, how can we look at intrinsic motivation? How can we make sure that everyone has a sense of purpose, know what they're contributing towards that's greater than themselves, where we're going as an organization? How can we make sure that people have a degree of autonomy, that we trust them
uh,
that we give them the trust they deserve? Because we hired them, we chose them. They deserve to be trusted to make progress in their tasks. Um, and how do we give them room to learn? Because if we don't give them room to learn, not only will they go elsewhere, but also the tasks that they'll take on in the future, they may not have the skills to deliver. And then we as an organization are going to be stuck as well. So really, I guess the focus moves from extrinsic, punishments and rewards, to intrinsic, autonomy, purpose, and mastery, creating the conditions for those to arise in our staff. And then good things just naturally happen, I think, for the organization and for the staff. What comes up for you?
True. Yeah. And um, okay, lovely. I mean, really, I love that because you frame happiness as not the park, but as a foundation of for the performance. And uh, listeners, I think that's the mindset shifts we all need to absorb. So uh, thanks so much for sharing this. And like, if you also share, like, if you had to give corporate teams and change makers one piece of advice to stay relevant and adaptable in the next 5 to 10 years, then what would it be?
Oh, absolutely. And if I can quickly go back, just because you said something really lovely in what you just said,
Yeah,
I just wanted to suggest, because your question was so powerful, how do we
right.
help staff be happy? I want to also kind of frame that as it's not a cost to an organization to make your staff happy, because often it's seen as an additional expense. It's a necessity, it's a prerequisite. You can't, um, for example, increase profits now in the future if you don't provide a secure and satisfying workplace to your staff, as Goldratt reminds us,
Mm.
because they'll leave and they'll go elsewhere. And then how are you going to achieve your goal in the future? So it's a prerequisite. We need to do this, not just for our staff, but for ourselves as an organization. So I just wanted to frame it not as a cost, but as a prerequisite for success in an organization. Um,
Yeah.
to your point, how to stay relevant. One, I think going to try and I'm going to misquote Akoff here, which is he says something like, more often we don't fail because we have the wrong solution, but because we have the right solution to the wrong problem. Um, as an ex-developer, as you said, I have shiny object syndrome. I get attracted to the solution at the detriment of understanding the problem that we're trying to solve. And particularly the problems are generally not isolated. They are in any organization interdependent. And so fixing one problem over on the left will actually probably have a negative consequence for another problem over on the right. And so understanding how these problems interact and therefore how doing one thing in one part of the organization may negatively affect another part is really important. What I found very helpful is understanding things through cause and effect. And in a way into that is a tool called the current reality tree from the theory of constraints, which is just a way of diagrammatically representing, if we do this here, what is the likely outcome and how it will affect other parts of the organization. And I like it because it's so simple. Once you see a current reality tree, it's like reading a story. It's very straightforward. Um, I have examples on my website if helpful, but there's plenty out there. They're very, very straightforward. But that just allows us to firstly work backwards from symptoms and focus on the cause. And secondly, allows us to understand and almost simulate, if we do this over here, how could it negatively affect other parts of the organization and how can we guard ourselves against that? So yes, and I guess the most pragmatic way, if you don't want to use any of that, is just ask why, and you'll start to get clarity of where to focus efforts.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. And um, that's really cool. I think a lot of people listening will feel less overwhelmed knowing that they don't have to do everything at once. So they just need to take the right step first. So that's amazing. Great. So, Simon, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. And what I really love about the conversation is that it reminded us, all of us, that digital transformation is more about people, process, culture, uh, than it's about the latest tools or the platforms. So, and for the listeners, I have to mention, like, if you are a leader who is navigating change in your organization, then take a page from Simon's book, Diagnose Before You Prescribe, and build happier teams. And remember that the right environment will enable your technology to shine. So, Simon, where can people connect with you and follow your work?
Oh, wow. That was a beautiful summary. Okay, put much more eloquently than me. Um, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me on curiouscoffee.club, not .com, .club.
Okay. Lovely. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference so that you can easily reach out to Simon. And um, to all of you, like, if you have found today's episode valuable, please share it with someone who's um, leading change in their organization. And together, we can definitely create the workplaces where people thrive and innovation flourishes. So, thank you so much again for tuning into AIBiz. And until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep building a better world. So, thank you so much.